the midst of the franchise tag window, and teams out there have until March 6th to actually designate a player to that franchise tag. Now, Tom, what exactly is a franchise tag?
It's a little complicated because there's actually several of them.
Yes, there are a few. So let's get into it. Here's an explainer on the non-exclusive rights franchise tag, which is what most people refer to as the general franchise tag. This is what Jarvis Landry recently got, and Tom, we'll talk about him in a matter of moments here. It's essentially an average of the top 5 salaries at a respective position over the last 5 years, or 120% of that player's previous salary, whichever is greater. Now, here is the kicker. Player can negotiate with other teams, so i.e., Jarvis Landry, because he has this specific tag, can negotiate with other teams, Tom, but of course, the Dolphins can match that offer, whatever it is.
Exactly.
So there is the non-exclusive rights tag. Let's go to the exclusive rights tag. This one's a little more expensive, so it's the average of top 5 salaries at a specific position for the current year, or 120% of his previous salary, whichever is greater. This player cannot negotiate with other teams. Usually the cream of the crop get this one, Tom. We've seen it with Le'Veon Bell.
This is the we are not going to lose you no matter what. You're staying here.
Absolutely. All right, and let's go into the transition tag now. This is a 1-year offer, average of the top 10 salaries at the position.
So it's cheaper.
It is very much cheaper. Tagging team can refuse to match offer from another team. The tagging team gets no compensation if it chooses not to match. And I mention this because in the non-exclusive rights franchise tag, you do get compensation by way of 2 first-round draft picks if you lose your tagged player. So
or you agree to a trade.
Exactly. And that's the rundown of the respective franchise tags out there. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll be hearing much about them throughout the off-season. Cam Rogers with you alongside Tom Downey here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Be sure to throw in your comments as we go throughout the show. Let's start off with the news before we get into the predictions / most likely candidates out there. Miami Dolphins. They have used the franchise tag on one Jarvis Landry. Here's the rundown of their situation, salary, cap space, and all, Tom. Now they're under the cap.
Yeah, because that cap is that negative $8 million includes the franchise tag for Jarvis Landry, the projected version.
Yep.
So now they ain't got no money because they went and threw it all at Jarvis Landry. The projected tag comes in at about $16 million. They've got huge contracts to guys like Ndamukong Suh that's eating up a lot of the cap space. But Landry has been tagged. The team announced that last night. But Cam, and we'll talk more about this later on in the show, there's no guarantee that Jarvis Landry will necessarily be with the Dolphins next year.
And yes, just to correct myself, of course, the Dolphins are in the red, so they are over the salary cap.
You meant under as in the bad way.
Exactly. So Jarvis Landry, the non-exclusive rights franchise tag, Tom, I think could be a scenario with him where it's somewhat of a placeholder move by the Miami Dolphins so they could at least get something from this move here.
The way that the Dolphins have handled the entire Jarvis Landry situation is really interesting and frankly confusing to me.
Yeah.
Because the reports was that they weren't offering him what Landry wanted, which was less than the franchise tag, but then you franchise tag him. So
clearly,
that's I don't understand it. Do you think he's going to be good for a year and then fall apart? That's where I have the disconnect in my mind. Look, Landry's not a top 10 receiver, but he is a really, really good one. And with what the Dolphins use him for, underneath short routes, pick up those 4 or 5 yards every single play, he's a very valuable player. And I think a team like Chicago would throw money at him. So that's why I kind of think Miami is going to try and trade Jarvis Landry. And there have been rumors of that in the past. And again, we'll mention that more near the end of the program today.
And of course, they will get compensation if that were to go down a trade, or perhaps a team matches an offer or puts up an offer and the Dolphins don't want to match it. So Jarvis Landry, throw in your thoughts about him as a potential top 10 wide receiver. I'm with you, Tom. I don't think he is, and he would be slated to make $16 million from the Miami Dolphins if he were to stay with the franchise there. So that's the lowdown with Jarvis Landry and the Miami Dolphins. 31 other teams have yet to use their franchise tag, and of course, not every single team will. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. We'll stay in the AFC East. In fact, we'll go division by division here.
Make it easy for everyone so they know what's coming.
Exactly. So E.J. Gaines is a free agent, had a good year in 2017. Preston Brown, also Jordan Matthews, Kyle Williams. I don't think there's a scenario where anybody on this team actually gets a franchise tag, Tom. And I think we'll be saying that a lot for many of these franchises.
Yeah, and I think we'll look at some players for maybe teams that aren't likely, but we still want to mention. Buffalo, E.J. Gaines was better this year. He's not worth the franchise tag. Preston Brown is not worth it. Jordan Matthews is not worth it. But for Buffalo overall, look, they are going to be focused more on the quarterback spot. They're not going to use their franchise tag. They don't have someone in the mold of a Cordy Glenn this year. So don't expect anything here on that. And with Buffalo, they are one of several teams that they're just not going to use their franchise tag, and they don't have to. That's the benefit of having the ability to use it.
E.J. Gaines would be getting a big-time payday if they were to use the franchise tag on him. And look, Tom, he had a good year back in 2017 coming over via the trade from the LA Rams, and he was kind of gravy in that trade too. He wasn't some guy that was supposed to step up in that secondary there, but played really, really well. And, you know, we have him as the most likely candidate, but in the end, do we really
doesn't mean that he's actually likely.
Correct. I mean, most likely.
When it's 0-0 and .001, .001 is most likely.
Exactly. It's all relative there. So we have him there, but Buffalo Bills probably not going to use franchise tag. All right, let's get into the New York Jets now. Current salary cap space of $84 million. Could Demario Davis get the tag?
If they're going to tag someone, it would be Demario Davis, because they're not going to franchise tag Josh McCown and pay him an exorbitant amount of almost over $23 million. Davis had a really good year for the Jets. He came back to New York and thrived this year. And he is going to get a much more significant payday this offseason, but it's not going to be upwards of the $15 million it would cost to tag him. You franchise tag someone when A, they're going to make more in the open market, when B, it's going to be pretty close and you can't afford to lose them. That's neither for Demario Davis, because the Jets don't want to lose him, but they can get him at a much cheaper price or get someone who can put up somewhat similar numbers for much less money. So that's why you see Demario Davis there for the Jets. It's not going to happen. It's highly unlikely, but you know, it was a guy we want to discuss because he was very much an overlooked player this year. He had a great year for the Jets.
Of course, there's ASJ as well that the New York Jets want to bring back at the tight end position. We'll see if he comes back.
Not paying him almost $10 million on the franchise tag, I'll tell you that.
Certainly not. Certainly not. All right, so there are the Jets there. Let's go to the New England Patriots now. Dion Lewis is a free agent. Malcolm Butler's a free agent. So is Nate Solder, but he can't get the franchise tag due to a clause in his extension. So what do we make of the Patriots?
And they're just not going to use their franchise tag at all. Now, Dion Lewis is the most likely guy, but we know the Patriots, and they're not going to put down almost $12 million on a running back. That's just not their.
That's ridiculous.
That's just not their MO style whatsoever there for the Patriots. And Dion Lewis is a very valuable piece of that offense. He had a great year this year, but he's not going to be franchise tagged. And with the way the year ended for Malcolm Butler, Cam, I think we know that he's not going to get the tag either.
All right, so Dion Lewis playing within a committee essentially for the New England Patriots last year, and you know, with him gone, he's pretty expendable, I would think. So no need to use the franchise tag there. Let's summarize what we have so far, and of course we're going through the AFC East and franchise tag options. Well, Jarvis Landry, he's already locked in for the Miami Dolphins. E.J. Gaines is a candidate for the Buffalo Bills. Demario Davis for the New York Jets, and Dion Lewis for the New England Patriots. As you see at the bottom of your screen, NFL Daily is presented by Mizzen and Main. Fantastic performance fabric shirts that are high quality and something that you will absolutely love. Very versatile shirts, can wear them in many locations. Comfortable.af is indeed the website. Mizzen and Main sponsoring today's show. Let's move along now into the NFC East. Take a look at potential franchise tag candidates, and we'll start off with the Washington Redskins. And there's some rumblings about Kirk Cousins perhaps getting the tag, and the Redskins then use that to kind of trade him. Tom, what do we make of this?
Oh, it's not going to happen because there's so much to possibly lose if you're the Redskins. What happens if Kirk Cousins says, "Oh, you're tagging me at $34 million? Done, signed. Okay, now what are you going to do with me? You're going to tell teams, hey, I'm not playing for less than $34 million. So you're going to have to pay me that up front." Like, Cousins, if the Redskins tag him, they don't have the leverage that maybe they think they do, because he's going to say, all right, cool, $35 million, done deal.
Thanks.
You now have no cap space, and you're going to have Alex Smith be your starter, so what are you going to do with me? Ooh, maybe you can get a second-round pick. Just, it doesn't make sense. And in general, with the way the Redskins have handled the Kirk Cousins situation, it's the textbook way of here's what not to do. This is how you don't handle your quarterback. Is Kirk Cousins a top 10 quarterback? I don't think so. Is he better than a lot of guys starting out there? I do think so.
Yep.
Is there a real argument to be made that you shouldn't overpay for an average starting quarterback? Absolutely. Is Kirk Cousins going to get overpaid? Yeah, he is. But the Redskins botched this from day one. And in the end, they gave a lot of money to an average quarterback in Alex Smith. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm excited to see where Kirk Cousins ends up, but he is not going to be tagged and then traded. It just doesn't make sense for the Redskins. There's too much for them to lose and to get an extra round pick in exchange because they're not getting a first. And they might get a second. So at that point, just take the third-round pick next year in the compensatory side.
All right, so certainly a lot of teams will be out there looking for Kirk Cousins to be their starting quarterback. Let us know who you think Kirk Cousins will be playing for in Week 1 of 2018. Let's check in with the New York Giants now. And I don't see them really using the franchise tag either, Tom. Could see an argument with Justin Pugh, though, their guard.
If he was healthy this year, I think he would have been the franchise tag option. But I think the Giants are a little bit like, I don't know if we can afford to shell out $14 million for a guy who was hurt last year when they have other needs as well. The Giants in general, this is what happens when you throw big money at defensive ends like Olivier Vernon and Jason Pierre-Paul and other guys throughout the roster.
Right.
They invested heavily on the defensive side of the ball, which I understand. I have no issue with that. But now you've got two really good linemen in Weston Richburg and Justin coming into free agency. How can you afford both those guys? You're with only $22 million, even after you can make some cuts, you can free up more space. I don't know if you can. So that's where things get dicey for New York. I think Justin Pugh in general makes some sense as a tag candidate. I wouldn't totally rule it out. I think it's a bit more likely than maybe you think, Cam. But I think he's going to get a chance to hit the open market, though, as either a guard or a tackle.
And the Giants may just do away with him and look at Andrew Norwell instead. That could be a scenario that the Giants kind of follow through with. Let's take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles now. They are really strapped for salary cap space, and we have the most likely candidate as Nigel Bradham here to get the franchise tag. But
look, with -$6 million, they'll free up some space by dealing away other guys. They just don't have the ability to throw $15 million at a linebacker. They just don't have it. Like, they just can't afford to do it, especially a guy who's not going to get $14 million on the open market. So the Eagles are not going to use their franchise tag. They'll look to the draft to upgrade what is in reality a very solid and complete roster.
And the important thing to note here, ladies and gentlemen, about the pricing for linebackers with the franchise tag, they combine an outside linebacker and a middle linebacker and on all the different linebackers into one category. Yes. Obviously, a pass rushing linebacker is probably more valuable rather than a middle linebacker,
That's why it's not going to be used.
So there you go, Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys, a team that will probably use the franchise tag on their stud defensive end there, DeMarcus Lawrence.
Look, the only reason they don't use the franchise tag is if they get a long-term deal worked out beforehand. DeMarcus Lawrence, for the Bucs fans, I know there are some Lions fans, all the fans out there that said, ooh, maybe we can get the 25-year-old defensive end with 14.5 sacks coming off in the open market and just throw money at him. It ain't going to happen. DeMarcus Lawrence will not hit the open market. The Cowboys will tag him before that March 6th deadline, and then they will then use that extra time between then and July to work out a long-term contract and keep Tank Lawrence in Dallas for an extended period of time. Look, they moved up in round 2 a couple years ago to go get him out of Boise State. They're not going to let him walk, even if it is a $17 million projected price tag.
He's going to be getting Olivier Vernon type of money, though. Get ready for that.
The Cowboys will try to get him to go under, maybe more like Jason Pierre-Paul money, but Vernon and Lawrence share the same agent. That's going to be the starting point for Lawrence's agent when it comes to discussions.
You're watching NFL Daily, presented by Mizzen and Main. We are summarizing the NFC East potential franchise tag options here. We got Kirk Cousins for the Redskins, Justin Pugh for the Giants, Nigel Bradham for the Eagles, and DeMarcus Lawrence for the Dallas Cowboys. Mizzen and Main, fantastic performance fabric shirts that you will absolutely love. Head on to comfortable.af to learn more. Let's go to the AFC North now. Start with the Cleveland Browns. And really, Tom, there's no option here.
I mean, we put notable free agents. That's kind of it.
LOL.
Like, Cleveland is at the point where because they have let guys go and because they're a very, very young football team, those are their free agents. You're not going to put the franchise tag on Isaiah Crowell. You don't need to for Josh Gordon because he's an exclusive rights free agent, meaning you don't have to worry about him hitting the open market.
And something
he's not
simmering with that, by the way.
He's not even eligible as well. There was a tweet from Pro Football Talk that said he was a restricted free agent. And now they backtracked and said, oh, well, maybe he isn't in exclusive rights. Either way, franchise tag just does not apply to Josh Gordon, so they're just not going to use it. They're going to go spend their money elsewhere, maybe on a guy like Kirk Cousins.
Nothing to see here with the Cleveland Browns, a team with a very big amount of salary cap space, so they'll be shopping this free agency period. Let's go to the Baltimore Ravens. They are not in a great salary cap position, $12 million to play with. Most likely candidate, center Ryan Jensen, who had a good campaign out of nowhere. The number 9 ranked center, according to Pro Football Focus a year ago, but he's not worth $14 million.
And you mentioned this with linebackers. Offensive line is all grouped as one.
Correct.
So that stud left tackle that gets paid $15 million a year, well, that's what happens with the franchise tag on a center. He gets paid the same amount. So offensive line is all grouped together. He was good this year, and he emerged as a center for the Baltimore Ravens, but he was really the only guy even remotely worthy of a franchise tag, but with just $12 million in cap space and massive needs at a bunch of other spots, they'll try and re-sign Jensen long-term rather than fork down all of their cap space just to lock him up and not have to worry about competing in the open market, because he's not going to get $14 a year. No. There's just no way. No one's going to pay that much for a center. Plain and simple.
He would get $4 million more than the next paid center. So there's just no way that he would get paid that much money.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Not at all. So let's go to the Cincinnati Bengals now, and really it came down originally to Vontaze Burfict and Tyler Eifert, but Burfict got his extension, so now Eifert falls into the fold, and well, he's always hurt.
If Eifert was healthy, it actually would make sense, because I think a $10 million for a guy of Eifert's potential, when we've seen him on the field, he put together his best 16 games, and it's out of this world. The issue is he never plays all 16 games. He is always hurt. He's got back and elbow and every other ailment and 3 ailments you've never heard of before in your life. Eifert just cannot stay healthy. The money isn't that outlandish for a guy of his talents, but if he's not on the field, why would you pay him? He's not going to get $10 million on the open market, so they're not going to go out and add Tyler Eifert. They're going to allow him to, see what he can get in the market. And by the way, he might not even be back in Cincinnati. I think that you could see Eifert just go play somewhere else. The Bengals like Tyler Kroft. They like some of their other depth there. Eifert just can't stay healthy. Cincinnati might say, you know what? We just can't trust you. We're not going to put $6 million down when we got other areas we have to address, namely the offensive line.
Yeah, especially at tackle. So there are the Cincinnati Bengals and Tyler Eifert. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that will probably use the franchise tag on Le'Veon Bell, running back there. He is so important to that team, and there's no way he's going to test the open waters.
The big issue for Pittsburgh is they have to find a way to clear the cap space. Now, Lev Bell wants a ridiculous amount of money, and he's been very vocal that he wants to be paid the highest paid running back in the NFL. He'll get that.
We all want things,
but
Le'Veon.
He wants to be paid like unbelievably well. Like, he wants borderline quarterback money, and I don't know if Pittsburgh's going to give that to him. And frankly, I don't know if they should give that to him, because that's a pretty significant amount of change to throw at a halfback who has so much volume underneath him. Now, with that said, he is the focal point of your offense. No disrespect to Antonio Brown, but I don't know if you want to let Lev Bell leave. What will happen is Lev Bell will get franchise tag. They'll try and work out a long-term deal. Maybe they do get it done. Maybe they don't. Either way, he's not going to retire, because no one's going to turn down $14.5 million to play football for a year. He's not stupid.
Yeah.
Like, that's a ill-advised leverage tactic that is very visible, and it's like, okay, Bell, no, you're not. You're just not going to do that. I do think he's the best halfback in the NFL because he can do so much, but he wants a lot of money, and I get why he wants a lot of money. I am curious to see what Pittsburgh does. I think from a broader perspective, if they say, all right, Lev, here's $16 million a year, you see Ezekiel Elliott, Fournette, Todd Gurley go, oh, yes. This is great because now we get to break it.
Right.
And I don't think Pittsburgh's going to let that happen. I think they'll try and work Bell down a little bit, but he's not going to hit the open market. Pittsburgh's not just going to let him go for a third-round pick in next year's draft as a compensatory selection. He's going to be with Pittsburgh next year.
All right, so the Steelers wrap up our AFC North section. Let's take a look at our full list here. Potential franchise tag options for the Browns, well, Isaiah Crowell, and we're really reaching there. Ryan Jensen for the Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Eifert for the Bengals. All three of those very unlikely. The most likely, of course, Le'Veon Bell in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Probably the most likely of any NFL team this offseason.
Agreed. And this is NFL Daily, presented by Mizzen and Main. Head on to comfortable.af to check out these fantastic performance fabric shirts that you will absolutely love, made with advanced performance fabrics. So you can wear them to work, wear them to the gym, wear them to sleep. These are fantastic shirts that you guys really have to check out. Comfortable.af is indeed the website because, well, these shirts are indeed comfortable as F. Let's go to the NFC North now. Start things off with the Detroit Lions. And Ziggy Ansah is a name to monitor, Tom.
I would be actually surprised if he didn't get the franchise tag. Now, I understand that there are some concerns around Ziggy Ansah. He did have 12 sacks. They almost all came down the stretch of the year, and they were all in like chunk games. He was the definition of inconsistent. Had great ups, and then for a good portion of the season, he was a complete non-factor. Mm-hmm. But here's kind of the way I approach things, Cams, when it comes to, okay, well, is he really worth $14 million in a bubble? Probably not because of the injury.
Absolutely not,
because of the injury history, because of the inconsistency. I think he has the upside to be, and if we get the production we saw at the end of the year, absolutely. But go out and look who else is actually on the open market. DeMarcus Lawrence is not going to be there. Julius Peppers is about to turn 39. Adrian Claiborne is not a good pass rusher. And then you've got the likes of Alex Okafor, Danico Autry, George Johnson of the Saints, Will Clark. It is dire straits for pass rushers. And you got teams like the Bucs who just need help there. I mean, Connor Barwin, Lamar Houston, these are the next best guys out there. So if Ansah actually hits the open market, he's going to get wildly overpaid. And that's why the Lions can't let him do it. They have to hit him with the franchise tag, see how he plays next year, and then maybe work out a long-term deal that comes in under that $17 million because he'll get that on the open market. A desperate team like the Bucs will throw money at him.
Yep.
So that's why it makes sense as a franchise tag candidate and why he really can't hit the open market.
I think it's really important for the Detroit Lions to kind of lock him in there and kind of build the front seven after that because they do need to address the tackle and linebacker positions respectively there. All right, so there is Ziggy Ansah for the Detroit Lions, a potential franchise tag candidate there. Let's go to the Chicago Bears. They could be using the tag on Kyle Fuller, the slot corner there. Prince Amukamara, also a notable free agent, both cornerbacks there.
You don't let Kyle Fuller leave. You don't have much behind you at corner. It is another Alshon Jeffrey scenario if you let Kyle Fuller go because Prince Amukamara also a free agent. If the Bears let Fuller leave, they don't have much going on at cornerback, and that's why I think you'll see him be retained. There have been some conflicting reports on whether or not the Bears are going to bring back Kyle Fuller. He had some issues last year there was a minor arthroscopic surgery that he didn't return from, and the Bears were like, you can return from this. You're just kind of taking the easy road and not really doing enough work there. When it comes to the Chicago Bears, I think that there's a good chance that they retain Kyle Fuller. He's too valuable to not bring back when you have all that cap space.
All right, so there's Kyle Fuller for the Chicago Bears. Let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers now, and really, air quotes, the most likely candidate would be Morgan Burnett, but he's not getting the franchise tag. I don't see the Packers using it. They haven't used it since 2010, Tom. They're
not going to use it on Morgan Burnett. They drafted Josh Jones out of North Carolina State to be that next safety. He's just not going to be back. They'll look elsewhere in free agency to potentially replace him or later in the draft. With limited cap space, Burnett's good, but he's not worth franchise tag money.
Right.
He's going to get a chance to go somewhere else this offseason.
How about the Minnesota Vikings now? They could use the franchise tag on Case Keenum. All three of their quarterbacks are free agents, Bradford, Bridgewater, and Keenum. So we have Case as the most likely franchise tag candidate out of those three.
I don't know if either is or any of those three are going to be tagged. I know Bridgewater's not because that's too expensive for a guy coming off a pretty severe knee injury. Bradford can't stay healthy. I don't even know if Sam Bradford's going to be able to physically play next year. Like, that's how brittle he is and how beat up he is at this point in his NFL career. Case Keenum makes sense, but if you're the Vikings, wouldn't you rather save that $24 million and go make a run at Kirk Cousins, who shouldn't be that much more expensive?
That's what I'm thinking.
And you got the cap space at $53 million, so I don't know if you're going to see Keenum get tagged because he's not worth $23 million. Maybe more like a Mike Glennon contract instead. I just don't think you throw that amount of money at Keenum. I think you invest it elsewhere at the quarterback position.
All right, let's take a look at the NFC North franchise tag options for the Lions. Ziggy Ansah for the Bears. Kyle Fuller, Morgan Burnett for the Packers, and Case Keenum for the Minnesota Vikings. You're watching NFL Daily here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Hey, how we doing? Cam Rogers coming at you alongside Tom Downey. We're presented by Mizzen and Main. These are fantastic advanced performance fabric shirts that you got to check out. Comfortable.af is indeed the website. Tom, you love them.
The URL checks out. They are super duper comfortable.
They are.
I've been known to sleep in them often when I come home late from going out one night, but that's beside the point.
Absolutely
They're
not.
comfortable. That's what matters.
They are comfortable indeed. So check them out. Not just shirts, too. I mean, pants,
Got everything.
sweatshirts, they got everything on the website. Hats as well. Check it out. Comfortable.af. Visit Maine, sponsoring NFL Daily as we roll along into the West. The AFC West, to be specific. We got the Kansas City Chiefs to talk about first. Tom, $18 million in salary cap space here. Nobody really jumps out to me. What do you make of the situation?
Benny Logan's the most likely guy, but they're not going to sink that amount of money into him. When he signed for $8 million last year, was relatively worth that, I guess. But it's double that to franchise tag him. It's not going to happen. So they will not use their franchise tag this year.
All right, let's go to the Denver Broncos now. $26 million in salary cap space to play with. Todd Davis, linebacker, our most likely candidate, but I don't think they use it.
They're saving it for a guy like Kirk Cousins. Denver will not use their franchise tag this year either.
LA Chargers finishing the year 9-7. They have Trey Boston to make a decision with. Could he get the tag, Tom?
He is the most likely guy of there, and Boston played really well down the stretch. 5 picks, 8 pass breakups. But at $11.34 million, the projected, that's going to fluctuate a little bit based on what the salary cap actually comes in at.
Right.
If there are guys that get extensions, if guys get new contracts, whatever, free agency as well as that. So Boston, I just don't see it happening. Like he's a good safety. The Chargers will try and retain him, but at $11.34 million, that's just too much money for a safety who is good, but he's not Eric Berry good. He's not even close to Eric Berry good. So the Chargers, I don't think will use their tag.
And we got one more team in the AFC West, the Oakland Raiders. Some notable free agents, Justin Ellis, great one-technique defensive tackle, Navarro Bowman as well. What do we make of the Raiders?
If they use it on anyone, it'll be on one of their better defenders, and that's Navarro Bowman. He had a bunch of tackles last year. He still is able to play well despite a history of injuries. But at $15 million for a middle linebacker who signed for super cheap because the Niners cut him on a contract that is less than the franchise tag?
Doesn't add up.
It's not going to happen. So Bowman's a talented player. The Raiders need to bring him back, but they can bring him back for a fraction of that $15 million price tag. He'll draw interest from everywhere, and I think maybe he wants to stay in Oakland, but franchise tag just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense there.
I talked about Justin Ellis this morning, Tom. Any chance there? Because I think he would be an important piece to that defense.
It's not, because Justin Ellis actually isn't all that good. Like, he can stop the run, but you're never going to franchise tag a nose guard who isn't even as good as Benny Logan.
I saw a report there that maybe the Cowboys might make a run at Justin Ellis, so we'll see. All right, let's take a look at the AFC West now, recapping the franchise tag options. Benny Logan of the Chiefs, Todd Davis of the Broncos, Trey Boston for the Chargers, and Navarro Bowman for the Oakland Raiders. As you see, visit Maine, sponsoring NFL Daily. Head on to comfortable.af to check out their fantastic performance fabric shirts. Let's stay out west, go to the NFC side of things. Arizona Cardinals. What do you think, Tom?
Not going to happen. Tremont Williams, I think, is the best guy up there because John Brown just can't stay healthy. But they got to save money for a quarterback, and they're probably going to have to make some other moves to free up more money for a quarterback. So Arizona, they're not going to use their franchise tag this year. Frankly, there's really no one worth using it on.
Adrian Peterson may get a cut, Mike Iupati, so they're probably going to steal some headlines with salary cap casualties,
Yes,
not necessarily the franchise tag. Let's go to Seattle. This is an interesting situation because Sheldon Richardson could get the tag, but reports suggest he wants to go back to New York and play for the Jets.
Yeah, some conflicting reports on that as well. Different sides of really the coast depend on, like the east side says, oh, he could go back. West side says, nah, he's going to stay in Seattle. So take that for what it's worth. Maybe both teams think they'll end up getting Richardson. Look, Seattle gave a second-round pick up for Sheldon Richardson. Do they want to let him walk for what could potentially be a third-round comp pick at most? That's where you get a little bit in danger here in terms of we don't want to get back way less than we gave up for 1 year of him. I think Jimmy Graham also makes sense. But the big issue for Seattle, the price tag isn't that outlandish, Richardson. It is overpriced, but do you really have the cap space to afford that? Like I know that Seattle's not going to make a ton of splash moves, but you're going to need help on both sides of the ball. You've kind of maxed out your cap space unless you go out and you cut a guy like Sheldon Richardson. Or something like Richard Sherman. I mixed up my S and my R there.
So the Seahawks have a couple of notable free agents, Sheldon Richardson and Jimmy Graham. And we do have a reaction poll that we are not going to get to in the interest of time. So we will kind of just mention it that Jimmy Graham, Sheldon Richardson, two names.
Both options,
to kind of monitor there. Let's go to the 49ers. 6-10 campaign in 2017. Good amount of salary cap space. Look, it was going to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo or no franchise tag at all. Jimmy is all set.
I wouldn't hate using it on Eric Reed because he's not worth $11 million per year, but he had a really good year for the Niners. But guys like Trubisky really stepped up down the stretch. I am curious what they do with Jimmy Ward this year. If they bring him back or say, okay, you can't stay out there, goodbye. Eric Reed is going to draw a lot of interest on the free agency market, but I think the Niners will go, you know what? Let us know what you can come up with, and we'll see if we want to match it once you get an offer from somebody else out there. I like Reed, but when Jimmy Garoppolo re-signed that massive extension, a well-deserved extension, by the way, the Niners were just not going to use this in the end, plain and simple.
All right, so there are the San Francisco 49ers. Let's check in with the Rams, and this is an interesting one. Could be Sammy, could be Tremaine, could be LaMarcus. Who's it going to be, Tom?
I think the most likely option is Sammy Watkins. And I think if there's one main reason why I approach it in this way. Go look at the wide receiver market and tell me the Rams want to let Sammy hit that market. Because 16.05 is a lot. He going to get more than that. Like, if you're a team like the 49ers and you have gobs of cap space or the Browns, what stops you from throwing just borderline record money at him for a wide receiver?
Sure.
Because the alternative option is you go with Marquise Lee or Paul Richardson. I know that Watkins isn't always the most productive in the TD Satan this year, but he's better than those guys by a pretty significant margin. So the demand for a guy at Sammy Watkins' talent level makes the franchise tag make a little bit more sense. I don't think it's going to be Trumaine Johnson because they tagged him the past 2 years. It's going to be wildly overpriced to do it. He might just leave altogether.
Crazy,
and I think LaMarcus Joyner, they can work out a long-term deal with him while franchise tagging Sammy Watkins and then working on a long-term deal with Watkins as well. I just don't think you're going to see the Rams use it on a DB. I think it's going to be on Watkins because if he hits the open market, it's going to get way too expensive.
Throw in your votes. Give us a heart for Sammy Watkins, a like for Trumaine Johnson, a wow face for LaMarcus Joyner, and a laughing face for just nobody straight up. Let's recap the NFC West. Trumaine Johnson of the Cardinals, Sheldon Richardson of the Seahawks, Eric Reed of the 49ers, and Sammy Watkins of the Rams, all potential franchise tag candidates. This is NFL Daily presented by Mizzen and Main. Advanced Performance Fabric Shirts. Check them out. Comfortable.af is indeed the website because they are comfortable as F. Let's check in with the AFC South now. Start things off with the Tennessee Titans. $49 million to play with in salary cap space. There's Avery Williamson as a potential candidate.
Look, I like Williamson a lot, but $15 million for an inside linebacker? That's not going to happen. So they're not going to use the franchise tag. I think he is worth discussing, but I'll be stunned if the Titans say, you know what, Avery, we cannot afford to lose you. We're going to slap the franchise tag on you. It's just not going to happen.
I actually think he goes into the open market and finds a really good spot. Maybe the New England Patriots, they have a big-time need at inside linebacker. I think Avery Williamson would be a really nice fit there. Yeah, $15 million. The Tennessee Titans are probably going to be like, no thanks. And perhaps Avery tests the open market during the offseason. Let's go to the Houston Texans. 4-12 last year. Much of that had to do with the offensive line play and Deshaun Watson getting hurt. And oh yeah, that secondary is pretty darn bad. Do they use that tag on Jonathan Joseph?
No, Joseph declined this year. He's just going to hit the open market. He might not be brought back at all, just in general. I think you'll see the Texans use their cap space on maybe a guy like Jimmy Graham. Throwing it out there. They do need a tight end. They got the cap space. So Houston will spend money in free agency, not so much on their own guys in terms of the franchise tag.
Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts now. Could look at Frank Gore, maybe Jack Mewhort, but let's be honest, they're not going to use the tag.
Mewhort is maybe the most of the guy. Was going to be Adam Vinatieri, but he's going to sign another deal, so he gets checked off the list there. So the Colts, in all likelihood, aren't going to use it on anyone. Mewhort's not worth the price tag that comes with it. Even though I like him, he was hurt last year.
Let's check in with the Jacksonville Jaguars now. Steve in the comment section was asking about Allen Robinson. I could see it go down, Tom.
I don't think he's going to do open market because it's the same type deal as Sammy Watkins. If you're the Jags, you need him back because he's your best receiver by far. Like, are you going to let him go compete with, like, the Niners who have more cap space, the Browns that have way more cap space? Like, you can't afford to let him leave and then get stuck with Marquise Lee, who's also going to get overpaid in the offseason. Like, I like some of the guys that stepped up down the stretch, Jaden Mickens among them, Keelan Cole, but you bring back Allen Robinson, even if it's just on the franchise tag, it's worthwhile because the alternative is just not good at all. And that's the issue for these teams with receivers. That's why you're going to see Allen Robinson, I think, stay in Jacksonville for at least another year. Maybe they get a long-term deal. No, I think maybe they want to see him how he recovers from that injury.
And let's be real here. The Jaguars don't want to pay this guy $16 million coming off a season where he had one reception.
The
you know
alternative is not having Allen Robinson
and that's it.
And really being stuck with a late first-round pick and Marquise Lee. Like it's just the alternative isn't worth not tagging him.
And the Jaguars could get some compensation if they choose not to match any offer from whatever team comes to play and wants to grab
But no one
Allen
will
Robinson.
because teams are going to throw a first-round pick and a massive contract for a guy coming off an injury.
A lot of teams out there with a good amount of salary cap space, so we shall see. Let's summarize the AFC South. Avery Williamson, a potential franchise taggee for the Titans. You got Jonathan Joseph of the Texans, Jack Buhort of the Colts, and Allen Robinson there of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We shall see with him. He's been in a lot of headlines of late. Let's go to the NFC South now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Most likely candidate, Brent Grimes, and he's old and not very good.
You're not going to franchise tag a 34-year-old cornerback. So Bucs will spend their cap money elsewhere. They freed up a lot more. They'll be active, but it's not going to be to use their franchise tag.
Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Bryant, the kicker there.
Kickers are people too, and in particular with the franchise tag, you pay a kicker $5 million if he's really, really good. It's actually decent value. And I don't know if Matt Bryant's truly a top 5 kicker, but it's really not that outlandish because kickers are so much cheaper. So I think in the end they work out more of a short-term deal. But I think the Ravens had franchise tagged Justin Tucker at one part in the past, if I recall correctly, Cam.
Yep.
You could see it again, but I think the Falcons get a deal done with Bryant before they need to do that.
This is an interesting storyline here. The Carolina Panthers, strapped for cash right now, but you know they want to keep Andrew Norwell. I don't know if they can.
Kind of reminds me like the Ravens a couple years ago. Remember they had 2 really good offensive guards. They had like of Cliche Osemele. He went to the Raiders, got a big money deal.
Yep.
Panthers are in the same boat with Andrew Norwell. They kept Trey Turner, which was a good decision. What was the bad decision was throwing money at Matt Khalil because apparently he's good and a left tackle and not awful, even though that's not true. So I think the Panthers' decision to throw money at Matt Khalil has cost them Andrew Norwell. Storage Lule could be an option, but they drafted some defensive linemen in the past. They have Kawan Short. They've got Vernon Butler, that was first-round pick a couple seasons ago. So Norwell makes sense, but I think it's just going to come down to Panthers just don't have enough money.
It's financials at the end of the day. Carolina Panthers, there they are, 11-5 camp.